When everyone thought they couldn't hear a thing, the black maid turned up the speaker. 3 deaf triplets jumped, danced, and laughed like never before. But what none of them knew was their billionaire father had just walked in. The Whitmore penthouse sat atop Manhattan like a glass crown, all marble floors and museum-like silence. In that silence, billionaire Caleb Whitmore thrived until his wife died and left him with 3 toddlers who couldn't hear and a heart that refused to feel. Each morning was the same: tie, cufflinks, news, silence. The triplets, Eli, Ezra, and Easton, sat neatly at the long dining table, eyes focused on nothing, small hands fiddling with their cereal spoons. They were 3 years old, identical, deaf, and eerily quiet, just like their father preferred. Caleb didn't know sign language, not really. He paid 2 therapists, 4 teachers, and a private speech coach. None had cracked the code. None had cracked him. As the housekeeper signed goodbye to the kids that morning, Caleb barely looked up from his phone. He was closing a $40 million real estate deal. Parenting could wait. 3 subway stops away, Jasmine Carter clutched her purse and rushed toward the Whitmore building's employee entrance. Her hair was still damp from her rushed shower. Her sneakers thumped the marble floors until she reached the back elevator. She was 5 minutes late. "Don't be late again," the butler warned as she entered the penthouse. "Yes, sir," Jasmine muttered, slipping on her maid uniform, blue, crisp, and starched like someone else's skin. She hated it, but she needed this job. Jasmine had once dreamed of Broadway. Her legs could spin lightning. Her body knew rhythm like breath. But dreams didn't pay her mother's hospital bills. Now she danced in kitchens, quietly while wiping down counters, listening to music only she could hear. She had no idea that today, someone else would be listening. She found the boys sitting in the playroom, each in their little plastic chair. Blank expressions, no toys out, no mess, no music. They sat like little shadows in their father's palace. Jasmine signed clumsily, "Good morning." Eli blinked. Ezra looked down. Easton didn't respond at all. She sighed. "Okay," she whispered. "You want quiet? Fine, but you're not statues." She went to the kitchen and returned with a Bluetooth speaker. Her fingers hovered over the phone. Then she remembered the vibration setting. Low, deep bass. It wasn't the sound that mattered. It was the feeling. She pressed play. A low pulse rippled through the speaker, vibrating the floor. The triplets looked up. Then Jasmine danced. She didn't speak. She didn't sign. She just let her body move. Hip, shoulder, smile, spin. And one by one, Eli stood, then Ezra, then Easton. Their little feet mimicked her steps, uncertain but joyful. Their giggles were silent, but their faces lit up like someone had finally turned the world on. They jumped, they spun, they felt the music. Jasmine clapped, laughed, moved with them. She climbed up onto the marble counter. The triplets followed. They danced like no one was watching, because no one was supposed to be. The front door opened. Caleb stepped in, phone still pressed to his ear. He held a teddy bear in one hand, his briefcase in the other. His assistant was ranting about stocks, but Caleb's feet froze. The bass pulsed through the marble floor. And then he looked up. There they were, his deaf sons, on the kitchen counter, dancing, laughing. And the maid, arms raised, eyes wide, in the middle of the chaos. His briefcase dropped. The call went silent. Caleb couldn't speak. The music wasn't loud, no lyrics, no melody. But the bass vibrated through the tile like a heartbeat. And the counter, his imported Italian marble kitchen counter, was currently a stage for 3 giggling, bouncing, barefoot children. His children. And the maid, spinning, hair flying, laughter silent but alive. For a second, it didn't feel like his home. It felt like someone else's life. Caleb stepped forward, eyes locked on the scene. The triplets froze, mid-jump. Ezra almost slipped, and Jasmine caught him just in time, breath catching as she turned toward the man in the suit. Her smile faded instantly. "Mr. Whitmore," she said, breathless. Caleb's voice came slowly, jagged like a cracked mirror. What is going on? Jasmine stepped down carefully, holding Ezra's hand. She looked small in front of him, not because of his money or power, but because she knew she had broken a rule. And yet, her voice softened. They were dancing. They're deaf, he said flatly. I know, she replied, but they can feel the rhythm, through their feet, through the floor. And they were smiling, Mr. Whitmore, all three of them. Caleb looked at his sons. They weren't crying, they weren't silent. They weren't screaming, they were alive. He hadn't seen that look on their faces since the funeral. His chest tightened. Down, he signed harshly. The boys climbed down from the counter, faces dimming. He turned off the speaker. Silence returned like a curtain being yanked down on a stage. Jasmine stood her ground, folding her arms. I get that you're mad, she said, but if you'd seen their faces, you'd understand they need joy, not just structure. Caleb stared at her, confused by the nerve she had. But more than that, he felt something cracking open. He wasn't angry. He was ashamed. Ashamed that a stranger understood his kids better than he did. He picked up his briefcase and walked toward his office. But before he closed the door, he turned back. What's your name again? Jasmine blinked. Jasmine. He nodded slowly. Keep the music off next time. And the door clicked shut behind him. Behind the door, Caleb sat down slowly. He hadn't planned to come home early. A cancelled meeting had left him with a rare hour to spare. He brought the boys a bear he never even gave them. It still sat by the door. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. The silence felt lonely, not peaceful. And outside the door, the triplets tugged Jasmine's sleeve, asking for more dance in their own little ways, eyes wide, hands wiggling. She smiled gently and turned the speaker back on. But this time, she turned it low. Enough to feel it, but not enough to get caught. Again, real love doesn't always show up with flowers. Sometimes it shows up with a speaker, 3 messy kids, and a maid who refused to stay in her lane. If this story is moving something inside you, hit subscribe. Don't just scroll by. Support the stories that speak without needing sound. The next morning, the house was back to pin-drop silent. No music, no dancing, just routines. Caleb stood behind the one-way glass of his home office, watching. Jasmine served breakfast with careful, quiet movements. The boys didn't smile. They ate without signing. Caleb noticed. He told himself this was better, predictable, safe, controlled. But somewhere, beneath the polished surface of his chest, was a small ache, an echo of that moment. Their feet on the counter, their eyes glowing, the pulse of life in the room. He shook it off and turned back to his laptop. Jasmine wiped down the kitchen island, her hands scrubbing a little harder than necessary. Why did I climb up there? Why did I let them? What was I thinking? She needed this job. She needed the paycheck. And yet, those few minutes, with the boys laughing and clapping and following her every move, had felt like more than a paycheck. It had felt like purpose. She caught Ezra staring at the speaker she'd stashed under the counter. He looked up at her, tilted his head, like he was asking, "Why did you stop?" Jasmine signed gently. "I'm sorry." Ezra looked down at his cereal. Later that day, Caleb met with the boys' therapist in his home office. "She's good with them," the woman said. "Who?" "The nanny, Jasmine. The boys responded well to her yesterday. They signed more in the last 24 hours than they have all month." Caleb folded his arms. "I thought you were against overstimulation." "I'm against disconnection," the therapist said plainly. "Whatever she's doing, it's working." Caleb didn't respond, but the seed was planted. That night, Jasmine put the boys to bed. Caleb stood in the hallway, watching from the shadows. He saw her kneel beside Easton, touch her heart, and sign, "You are loved." His throat tightened. He hadn't said that in weeks, not once since his wife. He shook the thought away. Later, he caught Jasmine in the kitchen. "Don't put them on the counter again," he said firmly. She turned, surprised. "Understood." But he hesitated, eyes narrowing. "What was that song?" Her lips curled slightly. "It's a dance track. Heavy bass. They like the beat." He nodded once. "Just be careful." And he walked away. But this time he didn't close the door behind him. At this point, what do you think Caleb should do? Keep resisting or let his walls down? Drop your thoughts in the comments. What would you do if a stranger connected better with your kids than you did? That Thursday afternoon, Manhattan was swallowed by a freak rainstorm. Fast, loud, blinding. And for the first time in weeks, Caleb's schedule cracked wide open. A business meeting cancelled, his flight grounded and nowhere else to go. He stepped into the penthouse, umbrella soaked and frustration simmering. Jasmine was in the kitchen, pulling homemade mac and cheese from the oven. The triplets clapped silently, their hands wiggling in excited little motions that meant yay in their world. Caleb paused. Homemade? He hadn't tasted anything that didn't come from a private chef in months. Jasmine turned, startled to see him home. "Storm cancelled your meetings?" she asked lightly. He nodded, brushing water from his coat. "Apparently, nature outranks billionaires." She smirked. "Happens more often than you think." The house staff had left early due to flooding. Just Caleb, Jasmine, and the boys remained in the towering apartment, forced together. By 6 p.m. the lights flickered, the power threatened to cut. Rain pounded the windows like drums. And in the middle of the living room, Jasmine was sitting cross-legged, teaching Ezra and Eli how to sign dance moves, not the actual dance, the words for them. Caleb lingered in the doorway, watching, spin, jump, clap, happy. Easton tapped Caleb's leg and pointed at him. Jasmine smiled. "He wants you to try." Caleb raised a brow. "I don't dance." She laughed, not unkindly. "Neither do they, but they're learning." Later, they sat at the dinner table, together, for the first time. Jasmine spoon-fed Easton as Caleb watched, oddly fascinated by the way she used gestures and facial expressions as much as her words. It was like language had texture. "You've had training?" he asked. "Some," she replied, "but most of it I just pay attention." That line landed harder than it should have. Caleb swallowed. Their mother, she was the one who understood all of this. Jasmine's expression softened. "You're trying," she said gently. "That counts." "No," he said almost to himself, "I'm surviving." By nightfall, the boys had passed out on the floor, a pile of limbs and toy cars. Caleb picked up Ezra and carefully laid him on the couch. Jasmine watched as he tucked the blanket around his son. "You're good at that," she said. "I don't feel like I am," he muttered. "I didn't say you feel it," she replied. "I said you are." They stood in the silence that followed, not awkward, just quiet, honest. Thunder cracked above the city. The lights blinked once, then held steady. Caleb turned toward her. "Thank you," he said softly. Jasmine blinked. "For what?" "For staying," he said. And he meant it. The next morning the storm had passed, but something between Caleb and Jasmine lingered. There was a softness in the air now. The triplets sensed it. They clung to Jasmine less like a nanny and more like a safe space. Even Easton, the quietest, began to mimic her signs with growing boldness. That afternoon, while looking for towels, Jasmine opened a hallway closet and found it. A dusty violin case, 3 tiny ballet slippers, all worn, a wedding photo cracked in the glass frame, and at the bottom a pile of drawings, all crayon-colored, all signed, "For Mommy." She didn't mean to snoop, but she didn't move either. Jasmine waited until the boys were asleep before knocking gently on Caleb's office door. He looked up, surprised. "I didn't mean to," she started. "The closet near the laundry room. I saw some things." His eyes clouded. "I haven't touched that since the funeral." She hesitated, then asked, "Why did you keep them hidden?" He sighed slowly. "Because when I look at them, I remember everything I lost. And when I hide them, I only remember the silence." He stepped around the desk. For once, no suit, just sweatpants and a t-shirt. He looked less like a billionaire, more like a man grasping for air. "My wife," he said, voice shaking, "was music. She danced, played violin, taught the boys to feel sound. We had routines, clapping patterns, heartbeat rhythms. When she died in that crash, he couldn't finish. Jasmine stepped closer. She was the sound in this house, he whispered. When she died, I silenced everything, including them. His voice broke. They started signing less, playing less. I thought I was giving them stability, but I was just freezing time. Jasmine didn't say, "It's okay." She said something better. "You're still here. That counts for something." Later, as they sat across from each other at the dining table, just the two of them, teacups between them, Caleb asked something he hadn't before. "What about you? How did you end up here?" Jasmine looked into her cup. "I wanted to dance. I was actually accepted into Juilliard." His brows lifted. "What happened?" She smiled, sad and proud at once. "My mom got sick. Bills piled up. I left school, worked at a diner, then cleaned houses. The triplets were supposed to be temporary, but..." She looked toward the playroom. "They feel like home." The silence between them wasn't awkward this time. It was healing, a shared grief, a quiet respect, a bridge beginning to build. He looked at her differently now, not just the maid, but the woman who reintroduced his children to joy, the woman who stepped into the silence and didn't run. The next morning, something was different. Caleb was up early, no suit, no laptop, just a plain t-shirt and mismatched socks. He walked into the kitchen and paused. The triplets were eating pancakes Jasmine had made from scratch. But what caught his eye was the note on the table, written in crayon. "Dance later." Ezra had drawn it, complete with 3 little stick-figure brothers and a boombox. Caleb smiled, actually smiled, for the first time in days. He nodded and signed clumsily, "Yes." Jasmine caught it from across the room. Their eyes met. No words, just something warm. That afternoon, Jasmine plugged in the speaker. Low volume, strong bass. The triplets clapped. Jasmine started dancing, goofy, bouncy, exaggerated movements. Then Ezra grabbed Caleb's hand, pulled him into the middle of the room. "No way," Caleb chuckled. "I don't..." Easton and Eli joined, tugging on his pant leg. Jasmine grinned. "You're outnumbered." Caleb sighed dramatically and unmoved. He was stiff, awkward, and completely out of rhythm, and the triplets loved it. Their laughter, silent but full-bodied, lit up the entire apartment. Jasmine clapped along, tears pricking her eyes. Not sadness, joy. Later that night, the boys were asleep again, faces soft, toy cars scattered across the floor. Jasmine gathered their socks, shoes, and toys. Caleb joined her without being asked. They moved quietly, easily, almost like choreography. When she dropped Ezra's favorite toy, he reached down at the same time. Their hands touched, brief, warm, electric. They both froze. She looked away first, heart thudding. "I should finish up," she whispered. "Yeah," he replied, voice tight. But neither moved for a full 5 seconds. Before she left that night, Caleb opened the coat closet, pulled out the old teddy bear he had never given them. He handed it to Jasmine. "Give this to Easton in the morning. He used to sleep with one just like it." Jasmine took it gently. "You sure?" Caleb nodded. "He deserves something soft." She smiled, heart full. As she walked out, Caleb watched her go, and for the first time the silence in the penthouse didn't feel empty. Safe. Saturday afternoon. The boys were napping. Jasmine was folding laundry on the couch. The doorbell rang, a rare sound in the penthouse. Caleb answered. A sharply dressed white woman stood in the entry, holding a designer purse and wearing a cold, familiar smile. His late wife's sister, Vanessa. "I was in the city," she said smoothly. "Thought I'd check on the boys." Jasmine stood up, smiled politely. "Hi, I'm..." Vanessa blinked at her. "You're the maid?" Jasmine nodded, lips tight. "Nanny." Vanessa turned back to Caleb. "So, this is who's raising your children now?" The air chilled instantly. Jasmine returned to the kitchen. Let them talk, she thought. But she couldn't stop herself from hearing Vanessa's voice drifting down the hallway. "I get it, Caleb. She's pretty. She dances. She keeps the kids distracted, but don't confuse entertainment with parenting or grief with guilt. Silence. Then Caleb's voice. It's nothing like that. Jasmine froze. Nothing. Like that. That night after Vanessa left, Jasmine avoided him until he finally knocked on the door of the laundry room, where she was organizing blankets. Hey, he said gently. She didn't look up. How was your visit? Caleb sighed. She's always been judgmental. Don't listen to her. She folded a sheet. Hard. You said it's nothing like that. He froze. That wasn't... I didn't mean... She faced him. It is something like that, Caleb. Maybe not love, but it's something. And it's real. He didn't answer. Say it's not, she pushed. Right now. Look at me, and say it's nothing. His silence was louder than any word, and it broke her. I can't stay here, she whispered. Not like this. That night, Jasmine packed a small bag. She wrote a note to the boys in bright crayon colors, each name carefully drawn. You are so loved. Keep dancing. She left it on the table beside the speaker. She didn't say goodbye to Caleb. She couldn't. And when he walked into the living room the next morning to find the speaker off, the note on the table, and the house far too quiet again, he realized what her silence meant. She was gone. And this time, he felt it. The penthouse felt bigger than ever, colder. Caleb walked past the silent speaker, past the crayon note on the counter, past the couch where she used to sit with his boys. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt the same. The triplets had stopped signing again. Ezra wouldn't eat. Easton threw a tantrum for the first time in weeks. Caleb didn't know how to fix it, because this time it was him who broke it. That night Caleb stood outside the laundry closet, the one where Jasmine used to hum while folding blankets, the one she'd disappeared into after Vanessa's visit. He leaned against the doorframe and remembered the night Jasmine touched his hand, the way her eyes held him, the way she believed in him when he couldn't believe in himself. He picked up his phone, typed, deleted, typed again. Finally, he sent a message. You were right. I didn't say anything because I was afraid, of feeling, of needing someone, of you. But it was something, and it still is. He stared at the screen. Message delivered. No response. Across town, Jasmine stared at her cracked phone screen. The message glowed. She sat in her tiny studio apartment, the rain tapping against the window, the speaker tucked away under her bed. She missed the boys, missed the feeling of connection, of rhythm, but most of all, she missed the version of herself that existed in that penthouse, the one who danced like she mattered. She read Caleb's message again. She didn't know what she was supposed to do with a man who only found his words after silence drove her away, but her heart wouldn't stop beating like a drum. The next morning, Caleb got up early. He cleaned the kitchen, made breakfast for the boys, pancakes, burned 2 batches, got syrup on the floor. But when Ezra gave him a thumbs up, Caleb almost teared up. He set the speaker on the counter, pressed play. The bass vibrated through the floor. No one danced, but they felt it. Then he did something he hadn't done since the funeral. He took out the old violin case and left the front door unlocked. The next morning the elevator chimed. Jasmine stepped into the penthouse quietly, fingers trembling, heart pounding. She hadn't replied to the message. She didn't need to. The moment she walked in, she smelled pancakes, heard the low hum of bass pulsing through the floor, saw 3 tiny heads bobbing up and down in the living room. And there, standing behind them, holding a violin completely still, was Caleb. He turned when he saw her. Their eyes locked. He didn't speak. He just placed the violin down and signed slowly, awkwardly, "Please stay." Ezra was the first to run to her. Then Eli, then Easton. They buried themselves in her legs, arms reaching, faces bright. She held them close, eyes full. Caleb walked over. "I don't know how to say this right," he said, voice cracking, "but this house, it was a tomb, until you brought them back to life and me." Jasmine's voice was quiet. "You didn't need to say it right." You just needed to feel it. He chuckled softly. They asked for a dance. She raised a brow. Did you? He smirked. Maybe. She reached for the speaker, turned it up, and danced. This time it wasn't chaos, it was choreography. The boys followed every move, clapping, spinning, stomping. Caleb joined in, stiff but smiling. He didn't care how he looked. He only cared that he felt something again. They weren't just dancing. They were remembering. They were rebuilding. And as the last beat dropped, and Jasmine lifted Easton high into the air, he giggled, loud, pure, and unexpected. The sound echoed through the penthouse like a bell. Everyone froze. Caleb's eyes widened. You heard that? Jasmine whispered. Easton nodded, just a little. Later that night, as the kids slept and the apartment glowed in warm amber light, Caleb handed Jasmine a fresh contract. She scanned it, confused. This isn't a nanny contract, she said. It's not, he replied. It's a partnership. Her brows furrowed. Dance therapy, child development, you, me, a foundation, in her name, in their name. Music that moves without needing sound. She blinked, tears rising. You're not hiring me anymore, she whispered. I'm not, he said. I'm choosing you. They stood there, in silence, until Caleb reached out, held her hand, and they swayed. No music, just feeling. Do you believe true love, the real kind, can be born in silence, chaos, and grief? Could you fall for someone you never expected to meet? Tell us in the comments. Your story might just inspire someone else to dance again.